Yesterday was Independence Day in our country. Last year at this time, my sons rode their bikes in the Lexington Main Street 4th of July parade, and we watched the fireworks over the Horse Center. This year was different. We had hamburgers on our back porch, and we watched Hamilton inside on Disney+. Independence Day is not a Christian holiday, but it is an important day for us Americans. Many Americans also gave more attention this year to another Independence Day, Juneteenth, June 19th, which celebrates the emancipation of those who had been enslaved in the U.S. In truth, independence isn't really that much of a Christian concept. Independence isn't a bad thing, of course, it's just not really a Christian thing. At the heart of our faith, Christianity is about acknowledging that we aren't independent. We need help. I need help. I need Jesus. We all need our Savior Jesus, and we need each other. We need the church family to walk with us in our faith. Now, Independence Day and Juneteenth do both celebrate freedom. Freedom from foreign rule and freedom from slavery. Freedom very much is a Christian concept. And Paul writes about freedom in his letter to the Galatians. Paul writes, "For freedom, Christ has set us free. For freedom, Christ has set us free." But what does that mean exactly? For us Christians today, freedom isn't only about personal rights defined in the U.S. Constitution. Freedom is a gift from God to be used on behalf of others. Both of those things are important for us to remember. Freedom is a gift from God, and our freedom is to be used on behalf of others. Freedom is a gift from God. We Christians believe that Jesus frees us from sin. As Christians, we model our lives on Jesus' life, and then we find that Christ frees us from sin. Jesus tells us and shows us how to live lives of love and joy and peace. Our words and our deeds are to be based in patience and kindness and generosity. As Christians, we believe Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. In his death and resurrection, Jesus frees us from death. As we follow our Savior in this life, we follow him into the resurrected life to come. For freedom, Christ has set us free. For the freedom of a life of love and kindness and faithfulness, Christ has set us free from the sinful, destructive ways of the world around us. For the freedom to love, Christ has set us free from the sin of hate. For the freedom to be kind and generous, Christ has set us free from the sins of malice and greed. For the freedom to be faithful to God and to be faithful to one another, Christ has set us free from the sin of self-centered arrogance. With the many gifts of freedom, Christ has set us free. The challenge for us today is, what are we going to do with our freedoms? What are we going to do with the gifts of freedom that Christ gives us? We are free to love. We are free to be kind and generous and faithful. What are we going to do with all of those gifts? Paul writes to the Galatians, "Do not use your freedoms as an opportunity for self-indulgence." Do not use your freedoms only for yourself. Paul writes, "For the whole of God's law is summed up in a single commandment. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." For Paul, and for the Galatians and for all Christians today, our God-given gifts of freedom and love and patience and peace and generosity are not gifts we keep for ourselves, but we're to use what we're given to build up each other, to build up our community, and to build up the world around us. God's gifts are meant to be shared. We use all that God has given us to enhance all those around us. God has freely given all of us the capacity for love and for mercy and joy and faith, so we freely give love and mercy and joy and faith to others. We are free to care for others. We are free to see all people as equals in the sight of the law and in the eyes of God. Christ gives us the freedom to serve not because we have to, but because we get to. Christ gives us the freedom and the opportunity to serve others not because we have a duty or an obligation, but because we have the gift of love, and we can't wait to put love into action. What are we going to do with our freedoms? How will we use God's gifts of freedom to enhance those around us? We will live lives with thanksgiving. We will give thanks to God for the blessings that, too often, we take for granted. For the family and the church family and all the people who love us and accept us and inspire us to be the best versions of ourselves, we give thanks to God. For the neighbors and the community who offer us friendship and warmth, we give thanks to God. For the land and the water and the air that provide us with the necessities of life, we give thanks to God. For our Savior Jesus, who teaches us to love our neighbors as ourselves and who forgives our trespasses and helps us to forgive those who trespass against us, we give thanks to God. I hope this day and in the days to come we will give thanks to God, and we will express our thanks and gratitude to those around us, not because we're obligated, but because we are free to give thanks. What are we going to do with our freedoms? How will we use God's gift of freedom to enhance those around us? We will live lives of humility and confession. We confess that with so much abundance around us, there are those in our world and in our communities and in our homes who do not have all that they need in life. Opportunities for full bellies and healthy bodies and educated minds are not freely shared by all. There is still prejudice and violence and poverty in our world, in our communities, in our homes, and, let's confess it, in our own hearts as well. You shall love your neighbor as yourself means that we must acknowledge our neighbor's pain and need and then use our God-given time and talents and voices to make the world more and more free. I hope this day and in the days to come we will look around and acknowledge the needs of our neighbors and then let Christ use us to care for those in need. Yesterday was Independence Day in America. This day, and in the days to come, we observe Interdependence Day. Interdependence Day, because we can't go it alone, not as Americans, and certainly not as Christians. We need Christ our Savior, and we need each other to be truly free. My gifts, combined with your gifts, all from the Spirit of Christ, to make the world around us free and good. Thanks be to God. Amen.